or the rights they ought to.
Diana Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
As it's International Women's Day, I wanted to start my remarks by paying tribute to Mary Dennis, who was one of the headscarf revolutionaries from the Hessel Road in Hull, who fought to improve safety in the trawler industry after many husbands, sons and brothers died whilst at work. And she won that battle and very sadly died in the last few days. And I also wanted to quote another formidable woman, the late Barbara Castle, who said, in politics, guts is all. And I think particularly today, when we've got the WASPy lobby here, I want to pay tribute to their guts for standing up and for saying that there's an injustice that's been done to them and to keep campaigning. And I'm very disappointed there's nothing in the budget today to deal with the injustice. So 2 points I just wanted to make at the outset, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, I was very surprised indeed that the Chancellor made no mention of Brexit in his statement today. I think as this is the major issue facing this country, it was very surprising. And secondly, I just wanted to comment on the clear breaking of the Conservative manifesto in 2015 by the government introducing the rise in national insurance contributions for the self-employed. And I checked, it was actually 4 times it was mentioned in the 2015 Conservative manifesto that they wouldn't raise national insurance. So for the 9,200 self-employed people in my Hull constituency, the hairdressers, the plumbers, the electricians, and I know many of them are already part of that group that are just managing, the group that the Prime Minister has said she wanted to be on the side of. So I think this is a real kick to that group in my constituency. Now, I want to focus really on 3 issues today. First of all, social care. I welcome what the Chancellor said about the need for a review. Of course we need to have that. We need to have a long-term strategy for dealing with social care. Certainly my view that we need a national care service akin to what we have with the National Health Service that was created in 1948. I think the time has come for that to be set up. But the social care announcement that was made by the Chancellor, that to spend 1.2 billion in 2017-18, 800 million in 2018-19 and 400 million in 2019-20, seems to, on the face of it, only close half the gap overall that we know that exists in social care, and there are no specifics about how this will be distributed. And I just wanted to comment on the issue of disadvantaged areas like Hull and the crisis we're facing in social care. We're the 3rd most disadvantaged area in the country. We have more people in need of social care than other parts of the country, and we have fewer people who are able to self-fund. And the policies which the government have so far brought forward to deal with social care, the increase in the council tax precept up to 3%, in Kingston upon Hull, that will only raise, because of our low council tax base, will only raise £8 and a penny per head. Where if you contrast that with Kingston upon Thames, there they can raise £15.27 per head. So clearly that policy is not going to meet the needs of areas like Hull that have that low council tax base. So I'm looking for the Minister perhaps to set out very clearly some guarantees about the most disadvantaged areas getting funding from that pot of money that's been made available. And of course we know that in politics it's all about making choices, and one policy area I thought the government could have looked at to fill this gap in social care was put forward by the Women's Budget Group. They were talking about how successive cuts in corporation tax by 2021 will amount to about 13 billion per annum. And they compared and contrasted that with the cost of free social care for those with critical care needs, which would cost 14 billion. So different decisions could have been taken by the government about where they choose to raise money and spend money than the ones that have been put in the budget today. I want now just to turn to investment in the north. And I checked the Red Book. There's just one reference to the Northern Powerhouse and the North-South regional divide. It says, as set out in the Industrial Strategy Green Paper, the government's ambition is to support growth in all areas of the UK. The government will shortly be announcing the Midlands Engine Strategy and is continuing to build the Northern Powerhouse. Now, I wanted again to raise with the Minister the fact that if you look particularly at transport investment, the latest Treasury figures show that per head of population in London, the spend is £1,943. In Yorkshire and the Humber, it's £190. There's a real gap about the investment that's going into the north. And I noticed the Chancellor made reference at one point to £90 million being made available to the north. I mean, the north is such a large area. It's you know, 90 million for the north. So I think it just shows that the government really haven't got a handle on the needs of, and it was over 4 years, as my honourable friends rightly pointed out. So no money identified to help Hull, particularly with the electrification that we've been fighting for many years, even though we put together our own plan to bring private sector money, and no mention there about trying to assist with that. And also no mention around Yorkshire and the Humber in terms of devolution, because that's obviously a way of accessing funds. No decision's been made on that. I'd just like to talk about education and skills, and of course we all want our children and young people to have access to that best high quality education that they can have, and in Hull the renewables industry is very important to us, so we want to have young people coming through with those skills for that industry. But I was really disappointed that the money that's been allocated for education is around this ideological pursuit of free schools and selective education, rather than making sure that the schools we have are properly funded. And we know in Hull there's likely to be a £380 per pupil cut by 2020, 8% of the budget is going to go. And the announcement about busing children to selective schools who are on free school meals, that doesn't help us in Hull. There aren't any selective schools, and that money would have been much better spent if the government are serious about social mobility, putting it into nursery school funding. And just on apprenticeships, 2.4 million apprenticeships announced. We know, particularly today with it being International Women's Day, that in those apprenticeships, young women are paid less, and there are fewer of them in STEM subjects. So my view of this budget is a bit of a damp squib. I think Hull will have to carry on as it's done for many years now, having to make its own luck. We've been fortunate with City of Culture and with the investment from Siemens. But in the spirit of where I started, the headscarf revolutionaries, we will continue to battle for a fair deal for our city from this government, because we are certainly not getting it at the moment.